up were so unrelated to anything that was in my head. It was either related to kids or women's fashion. It would be something about a women's blouse or something. And I just was losing and losing. And then about halfway, a little over halfway through the game, I saw this puzzle come up and it said the letters that were exposed, I knew it was London Palladium. It was music related.
Yeah.
And these two ladies had no clue. And so I kept waiting for my turn patiently. And then I won that round, so I finally got some money. And then we went into the where the show's coming to a close, and Pat spins the wheel.
Yeah.
And he hit 5,000, which means you get 6,000 per letter. And the puzzle came up, and when it came around to me, I called an M, and there were 5 M's. So it was $30,000 like that.
Wow.
And the puzzle was I can't make up my mind. So it had all these M's in there, and I guessed it, and I got it. So I made it to the finals, and I didn't get the final puzzle, but I still, left there with over $30,000, and I used that as the down payment on my first home.
Holy goodness, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the really neat thing...
Good use of that money, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Smart man.
Yeah. Well, the really neat thing was it was 2001, and we taped it in November, so it was 2 months after 9/11. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, the show was matching anything that you won. They were matching it in your name to the 9/11 fund.
Oh, wow.
So they gave like $32,000 in my name to the 9/11 fund on top of what I won.
Wow, that's great.
It was really cool.
Jeez.
Yeah, so that was the Wheel of Fortune thing, which...
Was Pat Sajak nice?
He was really nice, and Vanna was great too.
Yeah?
Yeah, Vanna, because they sequester you because they film 5 shows a day. They film the entire week's worth of shows in one day. So you're waiting your turn, and you're in this room for hours, mm-hmm. and you're not allowed to use your phone or anything. That you're really sequestered. So she came in, would hang out with us, and just talk stories, and just kind of entertain us a little bit. And and Pat was great. I got to sit and talk with him after the show for a minute, and found out he lives. What a life! They film the entire month's worth of shows in 1 week.
Wow.
They do 5 shows a day, mm-hmm. and they'll do 4 days, and the month's over.
Wow.
And so the whole rest of the time, he lives on his own private island in the Bahamas.
Oh, my goodness.
And so he was telling me this. I'm like, where do I sign?
Yeah, right.
I mean, imagine that. You work 4 days a month, and the rest of the time you're on your island.
Wow.
So
that's great.
But it was great. It was a great experience. I'd love to go back. They had a rule when you win. The rule used to be you had to wait 10 years to go back on the show. And I was counting it down, and I got to about 8 years, and I'm going, all right, I'm going to sign up in a couple of years. And they changed the rules and said, if you've ever won on the show, you can never come back on.
Oh, man. Oh, what a shame.
And I was like, just missed it.
Jeez.
And then the pyrotechnician, I just, as a kid, me and my brother liked to blow things up. And we lived in San Diego, so we would go across, the border into Mexico, and we'd buy all our fireworks and all the illegal stuff and the M80s and stuff that really could have done us some damage. And I had a friend, an older, a couple years older than me in school, that was into chemistry and things, and he said, and he was really into fireworks. And so he said, look, why don't we actually learn how to do this the right way, and let's start working on fireworks shows, because there's, different companies around the country that do the actual fireworks shows that you see, for 4th of July or any event. And so we started small in Vista, California, mm-hmm. And there was a show every year at the local park there, and we got hired on as grunts, as they call them. We were the ones digging the ditches and and loading the guns and stuff. And you had to do a few years of those shows until you could get certified and licensed. And so at some point, I wanted to start being the one that controls the shows, manages it, has my own crew, and fires the show, because that's the fun part.
Yes.
It's like 2 or 3 days of hard manual labor for a 20-minute show.
Right.
And then you got to tear it all down, too. But the fun part is actually firing the show. That's where your adrenaline starts going. So I ended up getting licensed and built my own team, and we did some amazing shows over the years. Our biggest show we ever did was we did the closing ceremonies at the Olympics.
Wow.
We were that was a many groups, but we were part of it.
Gotcha.
But which was a 45 minutes of just solid, the sky never went dark.
Wow.
I mean, it was like a 45-minute finale.
Wow.
It just started hard and it ended hard, and there was no slowing down. But we've done we did the Queen Mary several years in a row.
Which Olympics was that?
That was the Summer Olympics. Was that 88?
88?
At the Coliseum here?
84.
84, yeah. So that was cool. That was nice to be able to put that on the resume.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then, we did the Queen Mary several times. We did a lot of the Angels games down at Anaheim Stadium. And we were contracted out to different places every year. We did one of the presidential, it was Bush was speaking at an event in San Diego, and we got to do the fireworks for his event. So just, fun stuff like that. And I did it for over 20 years. And it wasn't a full-time job in any sense, but it was just something I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it's interestingly enough, they do a big show here, obviously, at Thousand Oaks, right by the mall.
Yeah.
And it's up on that flat hill. And I got called in this last December, and said, do you want to, it's been a couple of years since you've worked on the team, but we got contracted to do the Thousand Oaks show. Would you like to work this year? Would you like to help run it? And I was like, yeah.
Wow.
Because it was local.
Yeah.
And then, of course, no show this year.
So
I don't know what will happen next year.
No show this year. So, from your perspective, how has the last 7-8 months affected Guitar Center?
It's been very interesting. At first we didn't know what to think because, we closed every store in the country other than 3 stores.
Wow.
We have 550 stores when you include all of our music and arts stores, and every one of them was closed.
For how long?
2 months, 2.5 months. Some were closed longer than others, depending on where they were.
Yeah.
The only stores that stayed open were in Utah. They never closed down that state. So, but that was scary because that's our biggest source of income, obviously. But what happened is, thank God, so many people turn to music when there's a disaster, when you're stuck at home.
Right.
We saw our sales just skyrocket. I mean, it was literally like Black Friday every day.
Wow.
It was mostly online, but thank God we have 4 websites. And
what are the 4?
We have Guitar Center,
and then Musician's Friend.
Musician's Friend, Woodwind and Brasswind,
Yep.
and Music and Arts.
Okay.
And the things that you would think would really sell well are the ones that sold well. Acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
Anybody can sit at home and play an acoustic guitar. Electronic drums went through the roof.
Yep.
Home recording equipment went through the roof.
Cajones, I bet.
Hand percussion, cajones, anything like that. Right. But what still continued to sell that was surprising was acoustic drum sets, electric guitars. I mean, things that are a little louder that you would think you might, annoy the people at home, especially if you're sitting at home all the time. But business is just booming right now.
Do you think this changes, leaderships, Guitar Center leaderships, drive or opinion of actual brick and mortar stores?
Our CEO still believes in the stores. Definitely. I mean, now they're all back up and running, and it's still a huge part of our business. But we have seen how many people have switched to online purchasing, and will probably continue to do so because they found out how easy it is.
Yeah, and once you kind of break the threshold of certain things that you can buy, forever, I'm trying to think of a good example, but it'd be people thought like, oh, no one's going to buy clothes online, you know, and now everybody does, you know, or no one's going to buy groceries online,
right.
You know, it's like, it started like, oh, people won't buy books, sure, you know, and they'll buy, you know, soap or something like that. But now people, they buy their furniture, they'll buy a bed, you know, buy appliances, you know.
Well, the good thing with musical instruments, most categories, is people still want to touch and feel them.
Absolutely.
You know, a nice handmade guitar, a nice cymbal, you want to hear... You know, you want to hear that thing before you buy it. And we're blessed that we're the largest in the world. We have stores pretty much in every part of the country, in every little city. And nobody else can say that. So if someone wants to come out and try something, for the most part, they have to come to a Guitar Center. I mean, there's little independent shops around, but a lot of them are gone.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of from when, you know, back in the 80s, 90s, there were independent shops everywhere.
If I heard my buddy that he plays drums for me when I want to just sing. He still lives in Hollywood, and he was telling me, he's like, there's rumors going around that Pro Drum might shut down, and I was like, no, because I love the Art and Stan there. You know?
Stan and Jerry.
Stan and Jerry.
Yeah.
Why did I think of Art? Thinking that's a different guy, but. They've helped me out with so much stuff, you know. Like I had a Noble and Cooley snare. They got a crack in it, and they fixed it so perfectly, you know. You know, just super kind, you know, and like great. And all the gear you get there is great. You know, they're very selective of what they'll carry there. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and see, I hadn't heard that.
I don't think they'll go away.
I don't think so either.
Too many people trust them to repair their stuff too. You know that.
And see, they're not competition to us. Right. We actually send a lot of people to them, and they send a lot of people to us, because they do stuff that we could never do, the repairs and you know, the vintage gear and stuff that they get.
And they know everything about it.
Yeah.
You could bring in the weirdest piece of gear to them. And like, yeah, I've seen this. You know, what do you do with this? And, you know, X, Y, and Z. And then you're out the door and it's working great.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So, no, I hope they're fine, because they're good friends of mine.
Yeah, those are nice people.
Yeah.
I remember that guy, going back to that guy, Phil. It's like when he caught wind of me going on the road and stuff like that, and he's like, I think it's time we spend a couple days together. And like, I was like, what do you mean? He's like, just come over tomorrow. We're going to hang out for the day. I'm like, all right. And we get in the car and we go get some food. And then he starts taking me around in Pro Drum. He took me to meet the guy who was the head of the drum department at the Guitar Center on Hollywood there in 2002, and like introduced me. And he's like, hey, this is my friend Conor. He's starting to do some cool stuff on the road and stuff like that. And you know, help him out. You know, I was like, oh, you know, it's like and he took me to the Zildjian shop there on Ventura, you know, into the cymbal room.
Yeah, the
there.
artist.
Yeah. And, you know, took me to meet them, you know, took me up to Remo, you know, took me to meet Vic Firth, you know, and, you know, all of his contacts, you know, and this like cartage and supply place in, you know, up off like Van Owen or something like that near the airport. I forget the name of it. Something supplies. But he's like, whenever you need like all the little things you need for tour, cases and stuff like that, he's like, this is who to go to, you know.
Yeah.
Just like helping out guy, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really very, very kind. But those kinds of businesses, I hope, would not go away.
Right.
You know, like the best of and the most nuanced and knowledgeable of them should stick around. You know, it's maybe in vinyl. You know, think like that's probably why Amoeba Records stays around or something like that.
Yeah, if you're good at what you do, I mean, there's some great independent drum shops around the country.
Right.
And they're smart with how they run their business. And yeah, not everyone's a fan of Guitar Center because we're this big corporate monster in some people's eyes, even though we're all passionate players running it. But if, you know, a lot of people like to support their little independent shops, and, you know, and I was an independent shop for 16 years, and, you know, people, you know, they came to me religiously. They wouldn't go anywhere else. So I get that. Mm-hmm. There's just not very many of them left, unfortunately. So what became, let's switch gears again. What became, I do a lot of, I saw you
activities, outdoor activities we like to do,
Uh-huh.
and traveling, stuff
Yeah.
like that. And those are all passions of mine. I grew up playing as many sports as I possibly could,
Yeah.
And skiing